Hello and welcome all to the June instalment of our BluebeamMeUp series of webinars. It's great to see so many new people here, and a warm welcome back to the many of you who have attended our previous webinars. Just a quick bit of housekeeping for all those that are new. All attendees will be in listen-only mode. However, if you would like to ask any questions, then feel free to put those in the chat box and we will cover them at the end of the webinar. We will also be recording the webinar, and the recording will be made available to all attendees. And if you have any colleagues that couldn't make it today, they can watch it in their own time on our website tomorrow. I'm joined today by my colleague Troy DeGroot. Troy is the leading Bluebeam Certified Instructor in the world, and today he will be diving into the Bluebeam interface and what tools you can use to improve on your workflows and increase your productivity. We also prepared a handy guide on the key topics from today's session I've shared with everyone in the handout section on the control panel. So without much further ado, I will now hand you over to my colleague Troy.
Thanks for the introduction, Sean. Good afternoon, Bluebeamers. My name is Troy DeGroot with U Chapter 2, and I'm excited to partner with the team at BricsTech and Brighter Graphics to deliver world-class Bluebeam training and customization services so you can get the most out of your Bluebeam investment. Last month, we went over several settings and preferences I recommend to save time and frustration. Today, we're going to build on that by introducing the different tool panels in Bluebeam Revu. I'll cover how to show and hide tools you may not even know exist, and then some tips on how to use them as well. We're going to continue laying the foundation for saving time in your everyday workflows. Be ready to take notes. This will be another fast-paced presentation with about 50 bullet points I'm going to cover in just 35 minutes. As a reminder, you can enter your questions in the chat as I go, and we'll be answering as many as possible in whatever remaining time we have at the end. So let's jump into Bluebeam here. And so what you're seeing here is the Bluebeam interface, obviously. I have turned off in my profile all of the tools and all of that just so we can focus on the panels over here. So in Bluebeam Revu, you'll notice on the side, depending on which profile you're in, I am in the Revu Advanced, but I've modified my profile for this presentation, turned a bunch of stuff off, and actually put all of my tools panels on the left side here. When you open Bluebeam, you might see some of these tools on the left. You might see them over here on the right. Some of them you'll even see across the bottom. So for now, I stacked them all here. We're going to go through each one and show you what they're for, what they do. But before we do that, I want to show you, there's a couple of these that I have turned off on purpose. So if you're missing any of these as we go, you can certainly turn those on. You're just going to go down here to this black area in the side panel and right click, go to show, and then you can see here all the ones with the blue highlighted in blue. That means that they're turned on. So we can turn on JavaScript. If I right click, go to show again, you can also see that all the shortcuts are here to turn these on as well. So I want to turn on my signatures, and one more is my 3D model tree, and we're going to go over each of those. Okay, so you can turn those on. If there's any of these that you don't use, you can also right click and just click on hide, and it will turn that one off. And we'll go over the rest of these in a little bit here after we introduce these. So let's dive in and make sure I have them all. Yep, okay, good. Let's dive in and show you what these are all about. So we're going to go ahead and get started. We're going to start up at the top with our file access. Looks like a little file cabinet. It's in file access up here. There's a couple different ways that you can look at this window, your recent files or Explorer view. So if you prefer that, you can come in here and see the file paths and different folder structures. Most of the time, people are going to use the recent files where they can see all of the files that they've had open recently. It'll show, I believe it's your most recent 20 in here, and as you open more, they just roll off the bottom. There's a couple different ways that you can filter these. Right now I have it set up by date, so it shows just the most recent. You can also go by folder, most accessed, or access history. So you can sort those in different ways. You can also, one trick in here is if you're opening up documents, let's say you're working on the same file for a week and you want to keep coming back to it, but you're also opening a bunch of other documents and you keep losing these, you can pin them. So if I come in here and just pick on this pin next to that document, it will ask me if I want to put it into one of my existing categories. So these are all my personal categories that I have built. If it's a project, you might just go new category and type in maybe a project number or a project name, some sort of identifier for that category. And then you can pin as many documents as you want to into that category. So I'm going to cancel that. I'm going to expand my categories up here and show you the different ones that I have. So demo files in here. I have all the files that I go into when I do presentations for different things. Instead of going to file open and navigating to each one of these in their own folder, I have them pinned so I can very quickly access them and jump into whatever presentation I'm doing. Okay. Another trick that I'll share before we move on to the next panel is any one of these documents, whether they're in the categories or down here in your recent files, if you right click on it, you can go to open folder and it will bring you directly to where that file lives. So you don't have to open and go through this whole folder structure. You can just right click, open folder, and it will go directly to where that file lives in your network system. So I'm going to cancel that. That is our file access panel. The next one here looks like 4 little squares. That is our thumbnails. In the thumbnails, there's a couple different windows here. I'm going to switch over to a different document. Actually, I'm going to stay on this one. There's a couple different things that you can do in here. The first button here, and this is in Review 20, you can display the page label and the page scale. That's something they added recently. So it'll tell you the scale of each page in this document. This is only a one-page document. So you can turn that on and off. If you don't want to see the scale, you just turn that off. Okay. The other one that we can do in here is our create page labels. So I am going to switch over to this document here. This is a multi-page document. You can see all of my thumbnails are named 1, 2, 2, several number 2s. At the bottom of the thumbnails, we have this little dial, so you can scale up and down the size of those thumbnails. And in here, I'm going to click on Create Page Labels. And this tool here, I can go ahead and select a region, draw a box around the drawing number, click OK, and in a matter of a couple of seconds, it's going to rename all those page labels with what it saw in that window on each page. So there you can see how that works. That again was under the Create Page Labels. Next, we're going to go into the tool chest. Here you can see a few different things. You'll see a bunch of architectural markups, contractor, engineer. The way that they had this set up out of the box when you download Bluebeam is the architectural markups. They have a lot of the most common markups. They're red for the architect. You'll see the same markups here in yellow for the contractor. And again, the same ones here in a cyan color for the engineer. So in a drawing set that's marked up by all of these parties, you could very quickly see visually who did what markups and be able to, without having to click on them and see who's done that. The other thing that you'll see in the tool chest is some tools down here that I've built for doing estimates. So this is our estimating basics course. We showed how to build a couple of different tools, some wires, some railings, mechanical, plumbing. I think this is fire protection, precast. And then I've got some additional tools for our estimating advanced class. We did some different things that pertain to the students in those classes. So you can pretty easily create custom tools to measure the materials that you're doing estimates on, things like that. So, and that's also a service that we do for customers as well. If you're interested in that, let us know. We can evaluate what you need and come up with a proposal for that. So that is all in our tool chest. A couple of other things, the recent tools. So you'll see in here, it's recording the last markups that you did. So if I do this one here and I just place this symbol, hit escape. Next, I'm going to go through and do this one, escape. Those should collect in our recent tools. So let me see why this isn't working, of course. There we go. So that one worked. I did my markup and it put it in my recent files. So I think it has something to do with the sequences that I was doing. If you start to modify these markups in any way, it will modify the one, the last one that you did. And then if you want to save that, you just drag that up into either My Tools or down into one of the tool sets down here to save that for future projects. The way that Recent Tools works, it collects all the ones that you're doing as you're doing them. And when you close Bluebeam, this will clear if you don't save those somewhere. So keep that in mind when you close Bluebeam. It's going to erase all of these tools in the recent tools. So again, drag those into a tool set if you want to keep those. The My Tools tool set here, you'll notice a couple of tools in here. Yours are probably different when you look at your interface. When you drag a tool into My Tools, it actually gives it a shortcut. So you'll notice the number 1, 2 at the corner of these markups. What that means is I can either click on this markup and place that, or let's say I want to do my little X here. I can just type in 5, it's my shortcut key, and I can start to place those wherever I want. Type in 6, it's going to do my check mark from My Tools. So you can see all of those coming from our tool set. That's a way to very quickly get your team doing the same markups, the same colors, the same fonts, so there's consistency and standardization in the visual language that we're creating with markups. Okay. Some other, let's go on to, actually, sorry, let me go back to the thumbnails. There's actually, this tool panel looks very simple. There's actually a lot of functionality I forgot to mention. If you right click in here, you have all these options to, you can select multiple pages in this document and extract them, insert blank pages, delete pages, rotate pages. That's a big one. This is where you want to rotate the pages if they're not done correctly. So keep in mind these are all in the right click, and they're also under the tool, the thumbnails pull down menu. Okay, so actually there's a lot of tools in there. So again, tool sets. Next one we'll go through is our layers. I'm going to go back to this document here. And all of our markups we can put on layers, just like in a CAD program. So we can set those up to lock them, make it so you can print them or not, and also export them or not. And what you'll see here is if I click the I next to business park, you'll see a lot of those markups turn off. Senior living, you'll see one up there, open space, residential, and so on. You can start to see those different areas on the drawing that we turn on and off. And you can also build layer states. I didn't build any here yet, but if you want it to be, if you want to see just business park, you can set all those and save the layer states to just click on that. So a lot of cool stuff that you can do in there, similar to your CAD software. Next one is spaces. Click on this. You're going to see that I've created different spaces in here. The one-on-one market, Coburn's is a grocery store in my neighborhood, and Target retail stores. I created spaces for those different developments and named them after the anchor store. And then basically all of the other markups for retail and senior living and all of that will actually assign themselves to that space. So if I looked at my markups list in a little while, you'll see that you'll see all the different buildings that make up the Coburn's space. So hopefully that makes sense. We'll go over spaces quite a bit more in another future webinar. So I'm going to cruise past that. The next one down is our sets. For that one, I'm going to go over to my sets here. In Bluebeam, I always like to recommend for most cases to export multi-page documents into single documents and then build a set, what Bluebeam calls a set. That's our sets tab. When you pull all of those individual sheets into a set, it will actually organize them by discipline. It recognizes the S in front of all those sheets and puts it in a structural category and architectural and so on. And the beauty of sets is that we can slip sheet in revisions as we go. So we always have the most current set. The most current of every sheet is always going to be on top. You can see that here. Click on that. If I click on the little arrow, you can see the one behind it that was superseded. When I do my slip sheet with the extreme version, it's going to stamp the old one superseded and pull all of my markups forward to the most current drawing for me. So lots of great document management features in there to eliminate confusion, get everybody on the same page so that people aren't creating their own versions of a multi-page document, and pretty soon you don't know who's looking at what version. So I always recommend sets for that. Okay, the next one down is going to be the little gear. That is our properties panel. Click on that. Right now it's just showing the properties for the document, not a whole lot of information in there. But if I switch over to, let's say, this drawing again, if I go ahead and create a markup, let's go up here, we'll create a Cloud Plus. I can just draw a window around here. It creates the cloud for me, and then I can drag my note and type in my note. This area is to remain. I'll zoom in so you can see that. And when I click on that, you'll see all of the properties for that particular markup. So here I can change the colors. If I want this to be green, I can do that. That blends in too well. I can pick something else. The cloud size, the cloud thickness, all of these different settings are in here for my properties. And I can change this to look however I want. So that's how you change to use different colored highlighters, different colored clouds, all sorts of different things. This is I have my properties panel open almost all the time when I'm working in Bluebeam Revu. So we'll go into greater detail with that on another one as well. Next one is our measurement panel. It looks like a little ruler. On this one, you have all your measurement tools across the top. And then you also have your presets here to calibrate. So if you want to set your scale in here to what the drawing says your scale is, you can do that. I always recommend, because you don't know if the documents were printed correctly to scale or scale to fit, I always recommend my students do custom, and you can come in here and calibrate, and it will walk you through selecting 2 points on the drawing and entering in the correct distance that matches the dimension, and then it will calibrate to that scale. And then all the measurements that you do after that will be accurate. So I always recommend do the calibrate, the custom, pick 2 points and go through that process. Next one down is our search panel. So I'm going to jump in here. There's 2 tabs at the top. So the first one is our text search. So let's go over to a different drawing. Maybe see if I've got a good one in my file access. Let's go to this one here. Go back to my search panel, and let's just do a search in here for noise and hit enter. And down below, it's going to give me all the instances that it found for noise. I can click on those and it will highlight it on the document, show me where each one of those are, so I can validate that it does say that. And then I can always check to select all. And there's different things that we can do here for our checked options. We could highlight them all. We could strike through each one, or we could mark for redaction, depending on what we want to do with what we found in that document. Okay. If we jump back to, close that one, jump back to let's find a better sheet. Go to my thumbnails. This one will work. I'm going to go back to my search. I'm going to zoom in here. And for this one, I'm going to switch over to my visual search. And I can go ahead and get rectangle. Click on that here. Draw a window around something that I want to find, a symbol of some sort, something on the drawing. It's going to take a picture of that pixel layout on the document. Show that up here, and then I can click search. And in this search, I have the option to search the current page, current document, all open documents, all the way down to an entire folder. So with this one, I always recommend people do it a page at a time, just so that you can verify what it found. A lot of people use this for quantities, and so I always warn people on a large project with match lines, we don't want to find quantities on both sides of the line and accidentally get too many of them. So I always do a page at a time and just verify what I'm doing. So here you can see down here, 6 results. I found 6 of these. Again, you can click on these and it'll bring you there. Make sure that's not a tennis racket or something like that. And then once you select all, you have those same options in here to highlight. We could apply a count measurement, put a check mark or anything like that. In some of those estimating classes, I showed how to build custom count tools. So we could place a toilet symbol on each one of those, and it would tell us how many there are on this whole plan. So that is our visual search. Next one down looks like a little 3D building with a door on it. That is our studio. This is the cloud portion of Bluebeam Revu. And there's 2 tabs across the top here. This will look a little bit different than yours. If you're not already using Studio, it'll ask you to sign in. I'm already signed in. This first tab is our projects. Studio projects are basically you can upload any file type, any file size, any number of files, and you can invite as many people as you want. There are limits, but they're so huge that I've stopped keeping track. But basically, the Studio project replaced all of my FTP sites and passwords, all of my box accounts. I don't worry about the size of documents that I'm emailing or the number of documents. I can store or transfer any type of document I want in a studio project and send an invite to anybody I want that has a Bluebeam Studio account, which is free. So here you can see all of my different projects in here that contain drawing files, PDFs, Excel, Word, all sorts of different files that you can save up here. Next one here looks like a little whiteboard. That is our studio sessions. This one is PDFs only, and you can upload as many PDFs as you want and invite up to 500 people to mark up the exact same PDF at the same time. So I could literally have all of us in this webinar look at the same sheet, the same document, and as fast as you're doing your markups, I would see them pop up on my screen. And we'd be able to jump on a phone call and collaborate on whatever markups we're doing simultaneously. So great tool for collaboration. Studio has been a life changer for a lot of companies as we transitioned into COVID and working remote, working from home. The use of Studio and the cloud services just skyrocketed after that, and people are loving it. So again, that is our studio sessions and projects. Next one is our hyperlinks. So in Bluebeam, we can hyperlink to just about anything, all kinds of different options here. You can create places. So if I go to another page, let me just try this here. I'm going to go and jump to, let's find a detail here somewhere. Let's say this one here. And I'm going to jump back to my hyperlinks, and I want to create a place. So add a place. I'm going to call this detail 4 over A700. And I'm going to go with the current view, say OK, and then I can go over to some other sheet. Let's go back to one of those other sheets in here, and let's just say, let's just make something up here. I've got a note that I want to place here in my tool set, call out, place that here, and then I can right click on any markup, go to edit action, and I can select, these are all the hyperlink options. I can go to a certain document, I can go to a web page, I can go to a snapshot view, place, or a space. So I'm going to go over here, I'm going to select the open document that I have. So it could come from any of these. It'll find the spaces in whichever one I select. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say, I'm going to grab the one that I created and say, OK. Now it puts that little hyperlink there, and when I click on it, it's going to bring me directly to that spot in my drawing. Okay, so you can start to create places and then hyperlinks to those places. Very nice feature when you're looking at spec documents and things like that. If you have a section in the spec that you want to point directly to, we can do that with our places in our hyperlinks. You can also, some of those other options for websites and things like that, you can create a hyperlink anywhere you want just by dragging, creating a rectangle, and then you can tell it to go to any one of these places. So even opening up a different document. Okay, next one down here is bookmarks. So oftentimes I see people create bookmarks from the thumbnails or from the page labels. So we can do that. If we create bookmarks here, we could do a select region and select that. Or we can go from the page labels directly. So I can just click OK, and it's going to create all of those bookmarks for me. And then I can click from sheet to sheet, however I see fit. Most of the time I like to go with the thumbnails with the visual of each of those sheets, but other people like to use the bookmarks, so that option is here as well. We also have flags. That's the next one here. This could be used for just drawing attention to anything on the drawing. So if you're doing red lines and you want to draw a flag for a certain page, please make changes, just indicating that there's changes on that particular sheet, you could do that. And then if you start, let's go back to our bookmarks, switch pages, go back to our flags. And when I click on that flag, it'll bring me back to that page where I flagged it. You can also add different flags in here as well. If I wanted to click here on, let's say, a form that I want signed, I can just place that flag and type in my note. Please sign here. Oops. And that'll put a nice flag on there. And again, you're just going to open up your flag panel and click on these, and it'll bring you directly to those different markups or those different flags. Next one is our forms. So for this, I'm going to jump over to my RFI form, and you'll see on our forms tab, I believe you need the extreme version for this one. It'll give you all the tools that you need to create forms. So text boxes, radio buttons, check marks, lists, menus, buttons, signature fields, and so on. You can select those and go ahead and start creating these forms. One shortcut I like to show there, if you do have the extreme version, you can go under Tools, Forms, and if your form is formatted in a standard way in Word or however it was created, you can come in to automatically create form fields. And you'll see in a couple of seconds it created all of these, and it did such a nice job that it actually named the fields as well. So project name, it sees the text next to it and names that field, and so on. You'll see that go through all of these. So very cool, quick way to create those forms. Let's see. Next one is JavaScript. So JavaScript, I don't have a whole lot of experience with this, but we do have some resources for JavaScript. This is where you can create those different tools and functions and things like that. Let's kind of skip over that one. I don't have a whole lot to show there. Next one is our signatures. In here, we can create a signature field, which basically you're going to draw a box to create something just like this. And then you just create your own signature, digital signature. We'll maybe cover that on a different webinar, but if you come in here with your signature and click on, if I click on I click in here to sign on the document, it's gonna, I have my different IDs in here. I select the one that I want. I type in my password that only I would have with my signature. Click on login, and then in here you'll see that I have an option to sign it or the document certification. This is the button I picked on. And then you have options for what changes are permitted after you sign them. So do you want to allow someone after you to fill in forms and signatures, do markups and all of kind of everything, or do you want to allow no changes at all and basically lock that down? So you can set those in here. There's a few different reasons in here that you could select from: location, contact info. All of this is going to end up in the stamp when you place that. So I'm going to say OK. Right away, it's going to ask you to save that document because you're creating a new version that's locked down, and it doesn't want to override the original. So you can save this, and it will lock that up so that you can send that off signed. So I'm going to cancel out of those. And then the next one here is our 3D model tree. And for that one, a lot of people don't realize that you can print a 3D PDF out of programs like Revit, different CAD software like that. You can use the Bluebeam plugins to print a 3D PDF, and that's what I have here. So you can spin our building, our home that we printed from Revit, and then in here you can see a model tree of everything in the model, all the different pieces, all the metadata that comes with it. This one is typically by default in the bottom. So I'm going to right click. I'm going to show you how to move these. Again, show is going to turn those on. Hide will hide it. If I go to attach, I can send this to the bottom, and it will come down here to the bottom panel. And then you can see all that metadata that comes over from Revit, all those individual model pieces. And when I click on them, let's try the dishwasher here. It will zoom in on that element in the model and hide everything that's, or fade everything that's in front of it so that you can see what that is. And then if you spin the model, it's going to spin about that element that you had selected. So if we select something else, we've got a cabinet up here, a raised shelf. And in these 3D PDFs, you can also select your scope box, cut away, so you can see plans, elevations, sections, all that type of thing in here with our 3D model. So you can see me cut that and show what's going on there. Great tool for modelers to print a 3D model for others that are maybe not allowed in Revit making changes. You can still show them what's going on in the 3D model so that they can understand the constructability of the model. Right, we're cruising. We're running out of time fast. The last one is our markups list, and that one is typically in the bottom panel as well. I'm going to go over here to show and show my markups list. This particular drawing doesn't have any markups, so I'm going to come over here to my snagging list, and here you can see my markups list, all of the types of markups, notes that are in each one, who did it, when, all kinds of great information down here. There's a ton of power down here in the markups list for filtering, all kinds of different things. It's a one-to-one relationship. So every time you make a markup up here in your drawing, it creates a line item down here. If I delete it from the drawing, it deletes it from our markups list. If I delete it from here, it deletes it from the drawing. So it's just a running list of everything that you've created up here. In this case, a snagging list, so I could create a report of everything that I found that needs to be done. So we're going to spend an entire webinar next month on the markups list. We're going to show you all sorts of things that you can do down here, from estimating to snagging lists, and all the different things that you can do in Bluebeam Revu. I think you guys will enjoy that one. You'll be amazed at everything Bluebeam can do, the power that is in the markups list down here. So I quickly showed how you can move those, turn those on and off. You can send those to the bottom. A lot of times for me, I like the file axis, thumbnails, tool sets, all on the left side. But when it comes to my properties, I like to send this over to the right side, because I like to have this one open most of the time. So I leave that over here, and a lot of times I have my tool sets open over here. So I can work out of both of those, place a markup, edit what it looks like if I need to, and so on. I also like to have my measurements on the right side, so I'll send that over to the right side. And you can see those panels over here. You can click into each of those. You'll also notice on these panels, on the edge of it, you have a blue line that we jokingly call the blue beam. You can drag that in or out however far you want. If you click on it, it will minimize that. Click on it there, it will bring it out to where you wanted it. Same thing on this side. And on the bottom, you also have a blue line down here where you can drag up that markups list or hide that again. So those are a few of the best practices that I like to show. Having them on opposite sides when you're using a lot of those at the same time. Another trick that a lot of people don't realize is that we can actually split these views. So let's say I want my search here and I want to do hyperlinks as well. I can drag this out onto this panel and tell it where I want it. So I can go below, and now you can see my bookmarks and my links together. Or I could place this again and put those next to each other vertically. So you have all your bookmarks and your links next to each other. So you can really maximize and get a lot of things open at the same time with that functionality. So that is what I have for today. It was a lot to cover again this month. I hope you guys took notes and enjoyed the detailed introduction to Revu's tool panels. If you have any questions at all regarding training or customization services for your company, don't hesitate to reach out to our team. Like I said, next month we'll be diving deeper into uncovering the power behind the markups list. Everyone who registered for today's webinar will receive a follow-up email with the registration link. You'll want to grab a seat to this one. We'll have some fun sharing some really cool examples, providing Bluebeam this way more than proving that Bluebeam is more than a PDF viewer. So thanks again for hanging out this afternoon. I'm always honored to see everyone hang on until the very end. Sean, do we have time for some questions, or did I run too long? Was there any questions, Sean? You might have yourself muted. I saw one question in here that the toolbar that I was showing was off the screen. You might need, next time you might need to minimize that window and fit it into the screen. We've heard that before in webinars.
Yeah, that's great. Hi, Troy. Great webinar. Thank you very much for that. So just a couple of questions to run through. There's a question about the properties of a markup. Can you save the changes so you don't have to keep making the same changes?
Yeah, great question. So once you place a markup, what they're referring to, so you place a markup, say a text box, something like that, and then you select it, you go over to your properties, you change the color, the font, the size of the font, all that stuff. Once you get it looking the way that you want, you would just scroll to the bottom of that properties bar or that properties panel and click on set as default. And then each time you use your text box from the menus, it will use your default the way that you set it up. So.
Brilliant.
And that goes for any of your tools, even your measurement tools. If you change the properties, you can set the default.
Excellent. Okay. Another question is where can we access the previous webinar? So I'll pick that up. So if you go to our website, I can send out the link to everybody that's attended today. So if you go to our website, brightgraphics.com, the past webinars are available. included this one, as I mentioned at the top of the call. So this webinar will be on the website tomorrow. So if there's any colleagues that could not attend today, feel free to share the link with them. So another quick question is come to me separately. It's not in the control panel, but it's about how can you tell if a drawing is scanned or an original vector drawing?
So usually if it's scanned, it's going to come in as a raster rather than a vector based. So vector based means it was printed directly from CAD and it recognizes in the PDF that they're lines and text. When you scan something in, it comes in as raster, which means it's all pixels. So a bunch of dots that look like a line, but it's recognizing those as pixels. So one way to fix that, depending on the quality, is the OCR in the extreme version. Another way to tell is when you do markups and you have your snap to content on, it won't recognize those as lines. It'll be snapping to the pixels within the line. So,
brilliant. Okay. Thank you very much. So just to recap, the next webinar will be on the 26th of July. And as Troy mentioned, we're going into the power of the markup list. That's one that's been asked a lot, so that's the reason why we scheduled it. So I look forward to seeing you guys on the 26th. An invite will be sent to all people that attended and any other registrations as well. So thank you very much. Have a good day and speak to you guys soon.
Thanks, everybody.